Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Professional Perspectives with myself, Vicky, and Anita, and our special guest today. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Anita, who is going to introduce Soumya to you today. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome. Thank you so much, Vicky, and hello and welcome, everyone, and in particular, welcome you, Soumya. To introduce Soumya to each of you here, Soumya Raman is basically the head, as you know very well, you must have read on the brochure that Soumya is head of therapy as well as operations, and she's working with T.T. Ranganathan Clinical Research Foundation. It's very interesting how I met Soumya. So we both were participants, students, when we were doing or attending a workshop on professional supervision. And the minute I saw Soumya, I felt this is one person I want to know better, and I want to have her as part of the SJC Language Centre. So here we are. Thank you so much, Soumya, for giving us the time. Just a brief about you. Soumya holds a master's in medical and psychiatric social work. Sounds very big, and I know the kind of effort that goes into it. She's done it from Stella Marie College. She is a certified counselor under the Chennai Counselors Foundation. It's the Academy of Counselors Excellence. So not just a counselor, but an excellent counselor. So keep that in mind if you have relatives in Chennai and who are looking for support, whether it's marriage, family, children, or school counseling, name it and you have it. And Soumya is there. Soumya has about, say, 19 years of corporate experience in even the human resources, operations and functions. So as you know, and I mentioned earlier, she's head of the therapy and operations department, and with her established counseling practice, here we are. But one more thing that I'd like to add is that Soumya is also a certified POSH consultant. POSH is prevention of sexual harassment at the workplace. That's what it is. A lot to learn from Soumya. Over to you, Vicky.
Okay, thank you, Anita. Thank you so much. Well, I'd like to just start off by asking you about how you acquired this passion for people's minds and their thinking. Was it something that you always were interested in, or was it something that developed as you were getting your education?
First of all, thank you, Vicky. Thank you, Anita, for having me here. It feels good that somebody wants to know about, the work I do. It is definitely motivating for people like us when you're interested to learn about the kind of work. Well, I was always a people's person, but it was very accidental that I got in here into this field. My father has been mostly in human resources and recruitment. So the path that was paved for me was that I would follow his footsteps. And I took up, I did bachelor's in business administration. And I was,
me too.
and it was only, natural that I do MBA. But when I got to know about this course, I was very interested. And I went against the family and I enrolled for this course. And at that point, Master's in Social Work also has a specialization called Human Resources. So they did tell me that, opt for Human Resources. But the rebel that I was at that time, I took Medical and Psychiatric Social Work. It was very new to me. Because we were, social work involves 3 days of field work. So we were put into, like the fisherman colony, the slum areas and all that. That was very, very, a very new experience. Never, it was unheard of. And of course, my family didn't approve of it at that point. And that's how I got into it. And it really interested me. Of course, initially there was a lot of fear because come from a very orthodox Tamil speaking vegetarian family, and my first field work was in a fisherman, a very notorious North Chennai fisherman colony, where the people that working there, of course, they are fishermen, but they're also these underdogs and the henchmen, right? And you would see like fish everywhere, and it took a while because I am a pure vegetarian, and to see the kind of violence and the kind of issues there, it was very overwhelming. But somehow I made a lot of friends there, and it just went on. So that's how I got into this field.
Well, talk to us just a little bit about that, the family resistance, because I'm sure that many of our students here, they have this passion or something that's coming alive, but their family's saying, no, you should follow in your father's footsteps, or you should get a government job because it pays, it's more secure. So what was that like, Soumya?
No, it was very different because it was very, very unheard of, this course at that point. Mostly people who took it were nuns at that point. Of course, now the profession has really gained a lot of acceptance and visibility. But at that point, it was mostly people who were in service, like the nuns, and it's very common among the fathers and the nuns, to take up this course. And of course, this field had a lot of acceptance with Christianity, right? If you see that most of the social workers will be Christians because they believe in this work, the church encourages them. But you rarely see anybody from a Muslim or a Hindu background come into this. It is very unheard of 2020, about 20 years back. And of course, my father was very unhappy. The extended family was very unhappy about this, and it was a period of turbulence at home. But somehow, I don't know what, but I did stick to it, and it interested me a lot, the kind of work that we did. I am generally very passionate more to animals than to human beings. That's what I used to be. And even I still suffer from that. If I see an animal in distress and a human in distress, I would probably help the animal first. So that is something that I did think, but it came naturally to me to the empathy and working with people, and I used to enjoy my work there in the fishermen thing.
So how long did it take for your family to just accept and allow you to become what you were meant to be and do?
It has taken at least, see, initially when I finished my course, there were hardly few jobs in the field of social work, right? There were a lot of NGOs, they were mushrooming, but they were also involved in a lot of fraudulent, where for funds. So my family was not for it. They wanted me to work with an established thing. And at that point, the place that I'm working was the dream place for me to work in, with the Chennai and a known place. TTK was something that I aspired for. But my family said, it would affect the kind of, proposals, marriage proposals that I would get. Because if they were to know that the girl is working for an addiction center, for a rehab, you wouldn't get proposals. So I was not allowed to work. And at that point, there were not many jobs also. So I took up banking, whatever came my way. And
so interesting.
Yeah, because that was something that came up, and after a point, you really can't rebel much, can you? So I took it up. There also, I kind of meandered and found my way to work with people, training, and that's how I got interested. But there was this, and then I got married in a couple of years, and the family that I got married into also was equally or even more orthodox. They had never heard of anything like this. So they were against me doing social work. And then I was working in HR, and there also I was more interested in employee redressal, employee grievances. I brought in policies for employee-friendly policies, and somewhere it was always centered around working with people and working with them and their issues. And in 2017, 16, 17, I think I was brave enough to say that I am going to go back, and I did a course, and that's how I think. But I would say the experience, the exposure that I got is helping me a lot in my job now. It's not restricted to only this field, but a lot of the exposure that I had with working with manufacturing industries, banking, and everything. It only honed my people skills and to deal with all kinds of people. So, which is definitely so. I've come back into a position of the head position, into a place where I aspire to work as a counselor, but it feels good. That is because of the varied exposure that I had, that I could, kind of laterally just get into the position here. So no regrets. I think all that just helped build my skill set.
Wow, I couldn't agree with you more, because no matter what field we get into to begin with, it certainly helps, because these are skills that we develop, and eventually they are going to supplement us when we are getting into our core field of work.
Right.
So what I'd like to know is, you are head of operations and the therapy. What is your work profile like? What does your work entail?
My work, on a lighter note, it entails everything and anything that happens in the hospital. Like when somebody asks me, what do you do? I said, if there is a crisis with the patient, I'm involved. And even if a tap is not working in the bathroom, I'm involved. So it really pretty much everything, thing. But jokes apart, I take care. I head the therapy team, the counseling team, and I overall the operations of right from admissions, dealing with the medical team, the domestic staff, the kitchen, everything, and the outreach programs that we do, the collabs we have, the collaborations, everything. I kind of manage the entire thing, and I report into the management of this is a trust, so I'm kind of their representative, a link with the management here.
How does a trust differ from, I don't know, a government organization or private
This is a
organization?
family trust. It's a family-run trust. So this hospital was started 43 years back. Our founder started it after a personal tragedy. And she's the granddaughter-in-law of Mr. TTK, the ex-finance minister of India. So this is the TTK family. They're an industrialist family, but the granddaughter-in-law started it to help, because at that point there were no rehabs for addiction in India. So she was the first to start, and she retired and she's moved down south. And so I'm kind of stepping in here.
Do you find people there in the hospital willing, or are they forced to be there?
Working or
no, willing to be there, willing to recover?
We take in only people who are willing to think. It is one of the first values that we will not force anyone to admission. Only if the person really wants to work on himself and needs, accepts that there is a problem and there's, the denial is not there. So the first thing is we ask, is the patient willing? Does he want to? Does he accept that he has an issue? Only after that we work on everything else.
Do you use that 12-step program that is famous around the world?
We are not the AA, but we do collaborate with the Alcohol Anonymous, and they use the 12-step program. We use a combination of medical treatment and psychotherapy with a routine, and we have group therapy, psychoeducation classes, extensive counseling, and small complementing therapies like music therapy and horticulture, animal assisted therapy, and we use all that.
Does it consume a lot of your time and energy and um, family time? Does it consume a lot?
I love what I'm doing. So the minute I come in, I don't know how the day goes. I don't know how the time flies. And like now it's 6 o'clock, my day ends at 5. Of course, the time is 10 to 5. So it's pretty much okay. Evening, I'm home and all that. But the mind space, yes, I'm quite preoccupied because we have patients inside, we have difficult ones at times. So you are preoccupied, but it doesn't really, spill over into my personal life. I'm able to kind of, I really take my holidays. I go on vacation. I have my girlfriends whom I go out with, and of course, I have my pets at home, and of course, the husband and all of them. Do not go by the order. We just
That's brilliant. I was wondering, thrills, challenges, what is it that makes you feel wow? What are the challenges that make you feel, oh, how do I do this? Or, the thrills that you get having accomplished something that might have been very challenging.
Challenges, the work itself is very challenging because one is dealing with patients, the other is having happy employees working with you. Now, I give the second part more importance because happy team, then patients are also, we're in a field where they also get burnout and things. So first thing that when I stepped in, I wanted to ensure that the team is happy coming into work every day because it's a very challenging work for them. Of course, it took a lot of time for me to establish because I was an outsider. And there are people working here for 30, 35 years who probably thought they would be in my position, with growth. But the trust brought in somebody from outside. So there were challenges, and there were much senior people who taught me when I was in college, who would have to report on to me. So I had to establish, and that was a big challenge. But now I'd like to believe we're all fine and we all like to work together as a team. And I don't believe in confrontational approach. I only believe in encouraging. I do no critical feedback, only constructive feedback. And it's taken me a while to establish that. But I like the fact that from the security to anybody can walk into my room anytime with any of their issues, be it professional or personal, and they do that. So I know about everybody's lives and I know the challenges that they face. It only makes me more understanding when something happens. So that's been a challenge initially.
Yeah, it seems like you have to balance this, your staff and your individual and team efforts with your patients.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because it's a very difficult task, right? When the patients with severe other baggages and mood addiction is also it affects your moods. It affects there are so many other issues that they go through psychologically and physically. So the team needs to be, able to handle them.
So with the many layers that you seem to be handling, does any of the interaction, the observations, or anything that you come across, does any of that stay in your mind? Does it percolate into your own life?
With staff, not really. Sometimes with the patients, when we see them in distress, when we see children who come in, because one of the parent is seeking help, and when we see there's been violence and there has been a lot of, adverse conditions that they come in, it does affect. And especially when I see youngsters coming in, young teenagers, because I have a teenage son, and my heart really goes out to them. And they come in with an addiction issue, due to certain adverse, experiences that they have faced, the trauma and all that, and they take up to some kind of substances to cope, and they are helpless. It really breaks my heart. So at that point, it does, I definitely have a soft corner for them. And I always look out for those kids when I come in.
Right.
How I have a 23-year-old nephew who is an addict, and I mean, now he's not even in communication with the family. But if people know other people who are addicts, what is your recommendation? I mean, the only thing I know to do is pray for him. I don't know anything else.
See, the recommendation would be is, motivate them to seek help, because addiction is something that people think that they can manage on their own, but they need first medical help, because this is beyond their control. It is something that affects the brain, right? So the family, for the family to be more understanding and motivate them and start talking to them about seeking help. So that is the first thing that we can do. Usually here we see they try everything possible, and then as a last resort, they come in here. But that should be the first thing. Initially, it can be, if earlier the better, because the intervention can be faster.
Mm. Back to you personally, Soumya, what kind of professional development do you do? How do you get the compassion and the mercy and everything that you need to deal with all of these challenging situations?
Professional development aside, we keep doing courses. Like last we did supervision, and that really helped me work with my team, right? When I did supervision with people outside or something, it really gave me also not only about their profession but also into their personal lives and the challenges that they face. That is one. The other thing is, what I've learned is from our founder. Would always say, when we're running out of that our batteries, right? When we are really depleting, I always remember what she said. They are patients, and that's why they've come to you. You have to remember that. Some people will really test your patience. They drive you up the wall and up the cliff, and this is something that she would tell us, that I would always remind myself when somebody is really pushing me to the corner. We have difficult patients, sometimes even celebrities. But and I also, when my team comes, I hear them out. Sometimes the patients drain them out. When they come, I hear them out, but I would always say them, that's why we are here, right? I mean, they are patients, remember that. And they just need some pep talk, and then we just have a coffee and we
Yes, I so resonate with that, because, and I do understand why Vicky was asking you this question. You have such a calm, this thing aura about you, and everything is like just about manageable. There's no frown on your brow. So that is what is really amazing, how to maintain that balance, to be able to be there with that person yet remain detached. That does take a lot of toll, a toll on your own mental health at times. So to maintain that, anything specific that you do?
food. Food is, we eat together also. Sometimes when we've had a difficult day, we say, okay, let's order something. Let's eat it off, right? And we have a kitchen here and we order. That is one thing. And of course, I I was late, but better late than never. I work out. I realized that really relaxes me, though there is a lot of resistance before I have to go. Like tomorrow morning, I'm already thinking I have workout and it's strength training, and my mind is already making up excuses to not to go. But I know if I go and come back, I feel much better. I walk a lot. I work out. I mean, that helps me. And I also see some people also do not know where to draw the line. They keep working. They don't take a break. I keep taking breaks. I go out. I travel. I go out with family. I also like to go to a lot of temples. Not to the old temples. Me and my husband, we like it. So some common interests, right? And we like to meet a lot of people, family, friends, and so yeah. Somewhere I think we also have to disconnect to reconnect.
Uh-huh. We also want to ask you about like your advice, because of course we have a mixed audience here. We have people who are just interested in your work. We have people who are in the midst of pursuing their careers, and maybe they want to be teachers, and still there's a psychological element to being a teacher. Maybe they want to be psychologists. So just generally, or be as specific as you want, what are some of the steps that you recommend people take to pursue the career that they feel passionate about?
See, I think now there's so much of options than we had earlier. And I think it's only, if I can say that, it's only easier to hold on to. And I think there are and the world has shrunk because of technology and the internet, and there are so many opportunities, right? So one thing is, have that goal in front of you, but also sometimes, just take the experience that come by. Do not shun it off saying this is not for me. When I have to think back, I know that each and everything that happened that I wasn't happy, but that kind of goes into making the person that I am today. There are many jobs or many things I wonder what I was doing there. There are many, as a freelancer, I still think, oh my God, I did that, and I can't believe I did this and I had to do that. But I know it's only contributed in the kind of person that I am. And of course, the field that you want to, of course, keep that as your goal, but also give the other experiences a chance. I'm sure you'll get back. Somewhere I feel if you manifest it here, it will happen.
One more thing that actually strikes me is being in Chennai, you must be having a lot of people who speak the local language. But English being the language, how do you manage the balance?
That's a big thing, because I come from a family where we always spoke English at home, because we were in Delhi for a while, and my family thought that we as kids must know English, otherwise outside, we wouldn't be able to survive. Now, when I was put into this fisherman thing, I didn't know how to communicate. I didn't know how to talk, because my second language was Hindi. So at home we spoke Tamil also. I understood, but that was a big thing. But now my father still says that you have that local, the slang still in your Tamil, right? On a lighter note. So I still have the fisherman slang coming in when I talk. But what I talk to my team is, it's the other way. They are so good in the local language. They can talk to everyone because they probably, they come from that kind of background. But when it comes to English, there is a gap. And sometimes, that is a gap that we see in their professional development. So we keep stressing on them for language development, because right now you also need to cater to all kinds of people in the society. Your local language, yes, but you also need to know English very well, converse, and to be able to get across, because we do a lot of awareness programs with institutions, a lot of outreach programs that requires them to be very, very comfortable in English. So that is something with this sector of students, they've never probably understood the importance of English language much. They can manage, but when they have to do a session in English continuously, there is a problem. So,
well,
I'm glad you asked that about language, Anita. Go ahead.
Because I'm glad that, I'm not glad that they have a problem, but basically, if they do have, please refer them to us. We are the Language Centre, and we do help and do a lot of activities with reference to the English language.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, and also the Hindi, and we hope to even incorporate more languages. But I really, from what I'm hearing from you, it's an important skill to develop and to keep on top of.
That's right.
Yeah, certainly. And I think we can also fine-tune groups. We can have programs for specific groups as well. That also is a possibility that we are willing to take up. you did share about follow your passion and keep that in mind, even if it is not. But any aha moments that stand out for you through your life? Anything that you feel, wow, I did it, or this is something that's unforgettable for me?
In this field,
Anywhere in
Oh,
your
in
life.
your life, yeah, yeah.
there are many, but I still miss the rebel me that I was 20 years back. And I used to rebel, like question of course, my parents, my father, but the system. So we were put in a field work in, like I said, in a fisherman slum. And by then, by a year, I got very, very friendly with all of them, the localites. They never understood the concept of vegetarian. They would always make something with, fish, and they said it's only a vegetable and all that. But that's how close we got. And one day there was a lady who was trying to drown a young baby girl. She was, I think, a sex worker from the north, and she was trying to, drown the baby girl. I think the child must have been 6 months. And they caught her and they brought her, but because she spoke only Hindi, they didn't understand. So I spoke to her, and then we realized that this lady is trying to kill because it was a female child. And I kind of spoke to her and I told her, I'll buy the baby from you for 2,500 rupees. So she gave me the baby, and when I said, I need to give you the money. It's there. I'll bring it. So we thought we'll get her caught and all that. But I don't know how she realized that we're doing something. She left the baby and she ran through one of the streets, and I was stuck and I was left with the baby. And I went to our, the agency that for field work, and they said, why did you do that? Who are you? I mean, how could you do that? We're not going to take responsibility for a life. And I said, then what is, and I fought with them. And these were my fieldwork supervisors. I don't know how I did it now to think of it, but I fought with them. I questioned the system. I said, then what are social workers for when something like this is happening? They said, it's now your responsibility and we are not in it with you. They informed the college. The college was unhappy. I called my father asking, what can I do? He said, you brought in pups, you brought in kittens. I was okay with that, but how do you think this? And he went berserk. But luckily, the local police station helped us, and they took a undersigning. And there was a fisherman family that was the head of that adopted that child. That girl grew up to be very beautiful and very, she was a North Indian, so very fair. And here South, they're very dusky. So she was like the apple of everyone's eye. And child must be married now. But I'm glad that I did that, though, probably a few years later, I don't know if I had that rush to have, go against the system. But this is something that will always stay in my head, right? And of course, I was questioned at the college, but I was very brave at that point. And even if I think of it now, my jaw drops, saying, what was I thinking, But I questioned and I reasoned out, and there was no action taken. But I felt, I even said that, principles of social work or values, is it only in theory? I mean, what happens to practice? And they still remember me in school, in college for that. They said you were one of the notorious ones. But now
and it seems like you're the type that does want to try to fix things, but I'm sure you've learned that you can't fix many things. How do you what do you do with things that you realize there's nothing you can do about?
The serenity prayer. That's all. Right? Like when there are so many things that happen, there were times we were posted in the suicide ward of General Hospital. By seeing women burn themselves and die, it would really be very disturbing, right? And that's when, somebody who I was sharing said, the serenity prayer, what else can you do? Whatever you can is in your control, you can, but there are certain things that are beyond. So I think that's kind of.
It seems that the suicide rate is up. Do you have any words to share with people who know someone who has died by suicide?
Yeah, the suicide rates are going, yes, they are up here, especially amongst youngsters, right? I can only say that, if you find someone in the family or the friends who need help, we can be very quick in judging them and things, but at least, if you cannot be of support or if there's something that's stopping you, at least let them seek help, talk about it to them.
Good. Anita, anything else before we ask our audience for questions?
We heard about the turning points, the stressful times turned into positive experiences. We heard about the daredevilry, the rebellion. I think it's about time we have everybody else pitch in and ask their questions. I'm sure plenty of questions would be coming up. So, Vicky, over to you.
Yes, if you have a question, you may either put it in the chat or raise your hand or unmute and just let us know that you have a question for Miss Soumya. I'm going to put the view on
say something.
Gallery.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, Vidya? Vidya.
Yes, good evening, ma'am. And I don't have a question, but I was making note of everything that touched me or it's like that. And the one thing that I really loved when you said sometimes you have to disconnect to connect. And I think whatever you said has really helped me. And when I got to know that you were rebellious and you do not regret that, I think I'll not regret it either. So I'll take that in a good way. But yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I suppose it's something that still drives you, because I don't think that the rebellious spirit just leaves. There's a positive side to everything, right? And there's a positive side to that rebellion. I think it's probably something that drives you to make a difference, I feel.
And I only probably learned to mask it.
You live up to your name, don't you, Soumya?
I'm glad at least now. Otherwise, my parents always said that.
Manish?
Yes, ma'am. I have a question, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah, my question is that actually all the mothers support or convince with our dreams or vision or all the desire rather than father. Then how we will convince the father? This is my dream. I can complete it. So how to convince our father?
See, I think as we are adults, there's only a point, up to a point you can convince, but after that, you also need to live your passion, right? And I think once you start achieving, once you start establishing, I think they will get convinced. Like, I know my father is very proud of the work I do now. I know that he tells people outside, though he and my uncle, typical patriarchs, were against it, but I know they're so proud of the work that I do. And they've even said that to me. And so somewhere I think what I'm trying to say is, do not waste too much time trying to convince. I think once you're an adult and you're sure of your decisions, once you start establishing and you're successful and they see that passion, I think they will get convinced by themselves, right? Actions have to speak.
Great advice.
There's Dr. Nirmala who wanted to ask a question.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Because I have a problem with my, I think my mic and my camera, so it kept getting on. So
Okay.
yeah, it was very interesting actually. And when you spoke about, burns and suicides, and because I remember working in a hospital, in the postings that we had, and there was this doctor who would get the abortions done. And so he tried to abort. It was almost near term, and the live child was born. And so it was my job. It was like really scary, but how could you just kill a child? So, so it was my job to kind of convince the mother to keep the child and not throw it away, like, to discard the child. So I was just thinking of what Soumya must have gone through at that time, of not, of somehow saving this life. And so I sat and I spoke, and then finally the mother kept the child, because it was a girl child. They wanted to, abort the child or kill the child. So I think as women, there's so much of suppression, like from even before you're born, and even after, like till you get married, you have so many rules, and then even to just fulfill your dream, the kind of journey that you had, and you never let go of your dream. And it's so lovely to, hear all the things that you said. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
For everything.
I do have a question in the chat. Yes, sorry, I was muted. Soumya, have you ever faced a situation where you had to handle one mentally unstable patient who went out of control? How was your experience dealing with people who are emotionally more sensitive, and how do you make them feel at ease? Nice question, Isha. Go ahead, Soumya.
So that, so here we have people who, if we do feel that somebody is getting uncontrollable, mentally unstable, we have people to kind of suppress them or just be around and control them. But in spite of which, I was just walking, and there was a young boy whom I had pulled up the previous day because he sneaked in, not the previous day, but a week back, because he had sneaked in drugs into the facility. So I pull up in the sense I counseled him. I said, if you really want to do it, don't be here. And if you're going to buy it for everyone else, it's not fair, right? And the sort of, not a very, we normally aren't very harsh, but I had to kind of be very firm with him. And the week later, he had a psychiatric breakdown because obviously he was also he was on meds and he was abusing somehow. And I was just walking by and he came out the room with an attender, but he's a huge 6-footer. He just caught my hand and hurled me, around. And it was just a matter of a second. I didn't know what was happening, but somehow, I don't know, I was still calm. I didn't scream. I knew what he was trying, he was just trying to push me. But I also knew there were people there to catch him. So they just caught him. But I'm glad I didn't scream or any, out of fear or anything, because I knew what was happening. And I said, the mother, and they all came and apologized. I said, that's fine. And I just called him and asked him what was happening and why and things. Then after a while, he settled down. So yeah, and that was the experience that I had.
So sometimes you need your team to help you with.
Yes, if I was alone, you'd have, probably just carried me and thrown me out like that. He was well-built fellow.
And he'd gone violent.
Yeah, he was violent. He had a breakdown. Psychiatric breakdown.
Wow. Wow. And how were you feeling inside?
My heart was here, but I don't know, somehow at that point, I would have expected to scream out of fear. I didn't. I surprised myself.
Wow.
I was calm and I said, okay, it's fine. Don't, you don't have to make a big deal about it. It's okay.
Yeah. Grace for the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Any other questions? You can write them in the chat or you can speak to Soumya. If you want to ask about the psychological element of whatever profession you're seeking, that's also something you may want to ask, because we know that there is that element in every profession. Daisy says, psychology is a subject that requires a lot of patience. How do you deal with such issues and stay calm?
I think we are trained to do that. I think when we work and we are trained, we train to do that. Sometimes I need more patience dealing with my staff, right? I think it kind of grows on you. Of course, sometimes my son says, "What happens when you come home? You grow the top." So I see that's why we say you need to be trained professionally. Now, counseling is a field that everybody thinks that they can get into, right? There are so many TV programs that starts counseling people, but I think the training is very important, and we are trained. At least I like to believe so.
Yes, of course. Vidya, you wanted to ask a question?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, this is something that came into my mind like out of a sudden. It was like when I was before I joined St. Joseph's College for my graduation, we have this set of combination that we have different subjects together. So I graduated with political science, economics, and English literature. But there is this other combination, which is English literature, psychology, and journalism. So I was 100%, I mean 200% sure that I'm definitely going for literature, psychology, and journalism. But I still remember I was going to enter my interview room, and 5 minutes prior to that, my uncle sent my father, and he kind of emotionally convinced me to not to go for that subject, because the reason being, you will not get employment. And second reason was that even if you get, it will be very harsh for ladies. For girls, it is not very good, and like you said, it is not very respectable occupation or whatever. So I was like, I actually, the question is, I people can really very easily convince me when it comes to when they have this chance to convince me emotionally. So it is very difficult for me to control my heart and my ask my brain what to do there. So because I have taken such decisions like many times, and they are the only thing that I regret till now, because it's very difficult for me to shut my heart and listen to my brain. So yeah.
So what is the question here?
Yeah, the question is, how can I make a practical decision in such moments?
Follow what you want. How old are you?
I'm 22, recently turned 22.
See, of course, like because of our culture, we are conditioned in such a way that you can't go against the family and the family things. But in the end, right, when you know what you want, you will somehow ensure that you get it. Like if you follow if you had psychology, if you really were interested, right? Psychology doesn't mean you have to go and work only with people who are mentally ill, or it will disturb you or anything. Psychology is there even in day-to-day life, isn't it? So
And,
one thing
and
that
something that I heard that I think is really important is yes, follow your passion, but she also said take advantage of every opportunity.
Yes.
I think that that's so important for all of us to remember, that we have a passion, we want to follow it, we want to be true to ourselves and to what God's called us to, and all of that. But at the same time, we shouldn't underestimate the value of opportunities that seem far-fetched. Does that make sense? Was that what you're saying, Soumya?
Yes, and see, whatever comes your way, right? Just take it. Just grab onto it. I remember in 2018, when I was doing this course, that's when the cyclone Oki struck the coast down south, and there was huge devastation. And there was a team that was leaving to work with those villages where most of the men had who perished in that storm, right? I didn't know what, I just took it, but My husband said, what are you going to do there, down south in a village that has had a natural disaster? But I'm glad I went, though it really shook me. But I'm glad I went and I took it up. I'm just giving you an example. My husband, my father-in-law, everybody were like, why are you doing this? I mean, what will you go and do in a place where there is, so you know how it is after a natural disaster, right? But I don't know that drive. I went there. It was difficult. It was terrible. I had trauma for a long time after the trip that I went, PTSD. No, I couldn't sleep. But it also changed the person that I was. So I only look at all these experiences that sculpts you to a person that you are.
Ooh, that's a nice word. Of course, it also has the connotation of there's chipping and hammering and things that take place while you're being sculpted. Yes. Yes. All right. Okay, there's another in the chat. Hold on. How can we know when someone is depressed? Because there are people who seem to be happy, but they're not. And they pretend to be happy. And what if we found out that they're depressed enough to end their life? What shall we do?
Yeah, see, the word depression is now very commonly used, right? My 16-year-old keeps saying, Ma, I'm depressed. I'm like, why? Because no, I wanted to watch this movie and I'm depressed. And it's become a word that everybody uses. So how do you know when somebody is really depressed? One thing that you need to watch out is how functional they are, right? If they're still able to complete their tasks, they are doing things. One of the main things of any mental illness or any condition is when the functionality, their overall functionality comes down. That is something that you need to look out. Their overall socializing skills, are they being with people? Are they talking? Are they think? Because sometimes we do not know if it's an attention-seeking behavior too. So, but the main distinguishing factor is how functional are they?
Oh, that's good advice. Good question. Are they functioning? All right. Anyone else? We're on our last moments.
Excuse me, ma'am. If we found out that they are depressed and they are on verge of ending their life, what shall we do then? Like, what can we tell them?
One thing is, even when our clients come and we find that they are suicidal, we break the ethics by informing the family, because otherwise we maintain confidentiality, the family is not informed. But when there is threat to life, it is always advisable to inform the family about it. And if you find someone, always motivate them to seek help. Now, many of them try and start counseling their friends or relatives, yes, to a certain extent, but how unbiased can you be, right, when it is your own friend? So it's always better to take them out to a neutral person who will be able to help them.
Good, thank you. Bharati?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am. I wanted to ask something very general that almost everybody of my age might be facing. Personally, me, ma'am, when it comes to me, I value myself on the basis of how people look at me or how they think I am. So if they think I'm a nice person, then I'm like, acha, yes, I'm a nice person. So I tend to seek validation from the opposite person, and it hinders my um, this growth mentality that I have, where I'm like, I have to grow out of this, or I have to grow into this. So how do I stop seeking validation from somebody else consciously?
Seeking validation, I think all of us do at some point. We do not know the degrees, but it is a very common human behavior. But when it is kind of interfering with the person that you want to be, then that's where the line is, right? Now, if I have to give you when you're not sure of yourself, right? That's when seeking validation for everything can really hinder with what you want to be. Right? Can you give me any instances?
Instances as in there are a lot of times where I expect people to appreciate my work, even though I know that yes, I did a good job here, but then I expect from my peers to say, oh, you were really good at this, or this is really beautiful. So until they say that, I just don't feel
And,
like I did
yeah,
it well.
and then the disappointments come in.
Yes, sometimes I end up asking them, is this nice? And then after they say, yes, it's nice, then I'm like, okay, I'm satisfied.
I think you'll grow out of it. I think it's just that phase.
Maybe, ma'am, but then it has been happening since like
How old are you?
very long. I am going to turn 20.
Yeah, you're still young, right?
Something.
I think there's a phase, especially the adolescent and the teenage phase, where they constantly seek validation from their peers, isn't it? Sometimes that can be, also detrimental, isn't it? But
Mm.
I'd only say once you're very sure of yourself. I didn't get your name.
Bharti, ma'am.
Bharti.
Yes.
So Bharti, once you start getting sure of what you're doing and once you get good at something, I think you'll stop seeking so much validation. But I think a general human behavior we want to seek, somewhere we do seek. Now, at the back of my mind, I'm probably thinking, does Anita and Vicky approve of my answers? Is it, am I good enough? Do they think this thing was worthwhile? It is there, but it won't stay in my head for a long time, right? And I just move on. So it is a natural thing. So don't fight it.
Yes, ma'am.
All
That
right.
that gives me a lot of relief.
Oh, good. Thank you. Okay, we have time for one more question. Nirmala.
Hi, Nirmala here. So, yeah, actually, I just want to know that because you were speaking a lot about like how controlled and how composed you are, right? Most of the time, like it doesn't affect you. And I think, yeah, there are like, and we do have hormones and we do get affected like through the month. So, is there any time where you felt like really negative and you didn't want to do something and you had to go to work, you had to handle? So, like, how did you handle those days where it was a little, challenging and,
So
especially through your cycles and stuff like that? So,
yeah. So you know what? This thing has come to me when I was in different roles, but somehow it's never come to me in this role that I'm doing. Even when there was a custody, I mean, when a patient died in admission here, I knew that I had to face. I was going to face a lot of, handling the family because the patient has died. But I only wanted to be here. Somewhere I don't know if it was my passion or to work and to be there, but I was here even on difficult days, even during COVID, when the fear of infection was there. I was here, though I was, I had complications and all that, and was at high risk. I did come here. I never thought, I don't know, it was something that drove me. But when it is my cycle and all that, of course,
like, are you irritable
dark
and
chocolate
yeah.
dark chocolate with my draw all the time.
And
Yeah,
do you
because
think the feelings sometimes follow the actions? I mean, like if you don't feel like being there, but you just go ahead and do it, then the feelings come afterwards.
Yes, once I'm here, I forget, that I was, even when I'm not well, yes, I do come in for some time and I go back when I'm not well. And I did have a lot of gynec issues a year back and I went through procedure, but I had terrible time. But I would show up and I could manage. But I had a lot of support. By then, I had this team support with me who always looked out for me. They would ensure that, I was also okay. So that was very important to have those things. The first thing, like I look forward to come and meet people, and they also look after me well. When they know I'm not well and what I'm going through, there are people who are constantly getting me something to eat or to drink, and it feels good.
Like food is a soothing solution. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I know what to get you, Soumya, when I meet you next time.
Sorry?